Good afternoon. And thank you. I know it's late in the afternoon. You've had a lot of speakers. Hopefully the lunch was rich and not too rich. Anyway, we have the dubious advantage of being between you and probably the drinks or
happy hour.
The happy hour, or maybe visiting the Sphere next door. So hopefully we're going to capture your attention with some information that helps you grow your donor ranks and help you gather funding for the causes that you care about. So what I'm going to talk about is just how Amazon Pay and Alexa have been deployed to make donation easy. And then Alex is here because the American Heart Association is one of our partners, and at Amazon, we care first and foremost about not hearing how good or bad we are. We care first and foremost about hearing about what our customers think is important, and so Alex can be your voice and talk about what they've been able to do with Alexa and Pay. So one of the things important from an Amazon perspective, we kind of always have our head in the future through no small reason because of our founders, who's had this ability to constantly look at new ways to invent this very future. It's almost hard to imagine, but just a little more than 20 years ago, Jeff was driving books in envelopes to the local post office, and 20 years later, he and a lot of our predecessors have invented a number of really amazing things, and a number of those have actually been deployed in the area of nonprofit. And so, change is accelerating. Customers are ever more connected. This is one of the things that, in my experience, I've seen more and more of, which is the connected consumer is a new animal. The Homo connecticus is upon us, and that's going to change in a lot of the way. It's already changing a lot of the way we interact with people in order to get to where they are on their terms, in a fast-moving life, to make things much easier, remove friction, and do it always in a way that has integrity. So I'm going to touch upon a little bit these things today. If the little clicker decides to work with me.
Worked great backstage, huh?
There we go. I think it's no operator mistake. And I'm not that smart. It's 2 green button. Unfortunately, I was pressing on the wrong one. We started actually, Amazon Pay is a little over 3 years old, and we actually started to support donation fairly early on in life of the product. To date, over 1 million people in the US have made donations using Amazon Pay. This number keeps growing, in particular because of great partnerships like the American Heart Association. But it's not, what we do is not limited to Amazon Pay. Amazon Smile is another great example. And there is certainly, we don't make a lot of press out of it, but it's something that is important to the ethos of the company, including here in Seattle. And so we think it's important to support donor on their own terms and to make it easy for them to connect with the causes they love, just like we make it easy for them to connect with the things they're interested in buying or the services they're interested in pursuing. And so in that context, what is Amazon Pay? So Amazon, quite simply, we enable any Amazon customer to use the information in their account in Amazon to conduct transactions elsewhere. There's no setup required. There's no things to sign up for. Any of the Amazon customer is essentially ready to transact elsewhere. And when we do that, basically we project familiarity and confidence that they have built in their relationship with Amazon elsewhere to remove some of the cognitive friction that can come with a modern lifestyle. So there are 300 million Amazon customers worldwide, more than that. Every single one of them is a potential user of Amazon Pay. Today we're in many more countries than the US, 14 countries. We actually have customers that buy, so from merchants in those 14 countries, customers from 172 countries. So we have a global reach with Amazon Pay. And sub-part of this population is very important is the Amazon Prime customer base, which is actually very engaged with Amazon Pay. Not too surprising, there's a very strong connection with the universe of services that Amazon can provide. Now, before I talk a little bit about Alexa and where we're headed, I kind of want to go and take a step back. I find it fascinating to see how history rhymes, maybe not repeats itself, it definitely rhymes. And as a consequence, we can learn a little bit from it, and it's useful in the context of Alexa. So once upon a time, there was this thing called the web that was invented circa 1994, led to Amazon. I still remember right around that time, my personal very first transaction was buying flowers for my wife on one of the very first online merchants. And at the very beginning still of web, mostly what people did was take whatever was in printed form, put it on the web. The company I worked at the time had this gorgeous idea. We're going to take reams and reams and reams of documentation and we'll put them online. It'll be great. We'll no longer have to ship binders. Well, that was kind of, as we know now, a little bit of a myopic view of what you could do with a web. Now, 10 years later or so comes the smartphone. And lo, revolution. Suddenly, not only is everything digital, but it's everything digital with you. And the user interface, who had gone from command line to, say, graphics, suddenly it's touch screen, and very much what you see is what you get. And what did people do? They did on mobile what they had just done on the web, hence the pinch and zoom, etc. See the pattern here, right? Of course, 10 years later, we know the extent to which we were able to invent great user experiences with smartphones. And here now comes smart assistants and voice. And I make the point here of showing how history rhymes and repeats itself because there is certainly signs, a little bit of people doing on voice and smart assistants what they had just been doing with mobile. Down to, for those of you who are old enough to remember the very, very first apps, such as the Beer app or the Star Wars Laser app or the Fart app. Well, about a year ago, the most popular skill on Alexa was a fart skill. And now it's kind of gone down, but my point here is being, yes, history rhymes if we don't pay attention to it. Let's learn from it, and I think Alex will give us example of great example of what we can do. So voice and smart assistant for us is a new frontier. It's one of those once in a decade kind of events that really help you transform how you operate. It enables you now to reach tens of millions of people in places where you might not have reached them, and in ways that is actually very instantaneous and very natural, and in an ecosystem that is growing extremely fast in terms of number of devices and endpoints, but also number of ways in which they can be used. Let me give you a practical example. So we went, as a consequence, as we saw this a little bit more than a year ago, we thought, what if we could enable donation via voice? Our hero use case was somebody hears the news and decides, based on content, to make a donation. It was ironic because we whipped up a demo and showed up to our exec, and the demo was, Alexa, read me the news. And Alexa would come back and say, there has been 7.6 magnitude earthquake in Chile, and 30,000 people are feared dead, and almost to a T, every single exec in the room would go, what? Did it really happen? No, it didn't, but let us show you, and then we could move into supporting a moment where the customer or the donor might be indeed sensitive to. And of course, in this case, it was disaster recovery, but it could be many other use cases. So for us, it was about how do we make this super easy, really remove a lot of the the challenges, you collectively, I'm sure, even though you depend a lot on technology, you'd much rather spend your time pursuing the cause than doing engineering work. What could we do to simplify this? And this is what we built with Alexa Donation, enabling you to engage very easily with the tens of millions of people who have Alexa devices. So here's what it looks. This is a snort snapshot that we built to kind of represent, imagine this for those of you who still have young kids in your living room.
Pulse, 120/30. Nurse, bandages.
Yes, doctor.
Alexa, make a donation to St. Jude.
How much would you like to donate?
You're gonna be okay.
And so it is literally that simple. Now, simplicity on the surface does not necessarily mean that we didn't have to solve a number of interesting technical problems. We solve them on your behalf, because then you can capture a moment in the life of the donors that would really allow them to relate to a cause. Now, of course, you could imagine Alexa is a little bit where, as I said, smartphones were in 2009. It was just beginning. We're just scratching the surface. There's so many things we really don't know. We don't fully understand how consumers are going to interact with Alexa. We learn every day as we develop around it, and we learn with our customers, our partners. But what we have found out, what's interesting, is we can actually capture people's attention by showcasing a use case with Alexa, and then still provide them with the environments that many of them are habituated to transact in and pay in mobile. So for instance, recently we participated in Red Nose Day. We supported donation on Alexa and on the web. The vast majority of people went to the web, but they took notice because somebody talked to them about doing something very different in this context, Alexa. And it's like everything, if you break away from the noise, now you can capture people. So let me tell you a little bit about kind of giving in kind of multiple ways and being able to be with your donor on their own term. A couple of things to kind of, we start from this notion 70% of donation in the US are from individuals, so let's cater to that. And one thing that we do notice is 82% of donation on the web are abandoned. And that is significantly higher than a conversion rate when you're doing e-commerce. Now, granted, the mindset of the person is different. There's all sorts of things at work. But still, imagine what, when 70% of donations are roughly $270 billion come from consumers, every percent is very, very material to your ability to deliver on behalf of the causes that you want to deliver. And so what we've built with the suite of services around pay is addressing some of that. And in particular, because we have also found is trust and familiarity matter deeply to people. It contributes to cognitive friction, which is one of the major factors that leads to abandonment. And so by leveraging the capacity people have to use the experience that they're familiar with on Amazon in other places, we basically reduce the cognitive friction, and we actually impact conversion. In e-commerce situation, we increase conversion anywhere between 30 and 75%, depending on a variety of cases. So that's very material. It's sort of not leaving money or good intention on the table. Now, with Alexa, this matters as well. One of the things that's super important to realize is Alexa is not about voice. Voice enables access to Alexa, but Alexa is about intelligence. And as any intelligent engine, it evolves all the time. We add skills all the time. And the Alexa of 2 years ago, the Alexa of last year, of today, and 2 years from now, there's a very, very steep acceleration curve as more and more ideas get brought onto the medium, just like 10 years ago with mobile. And so, in that context, it's important, like all the things that you can do to make it easy for your buyers to potentially have multimodal experiences. I may start learning about red nose through Alexa, asking questions, but then decide I'm going to go and continue that thread online. And Alex, I think, will be able to give some experience. So for us, we thrive to actually provide a consistency of experience for the Amazon customer wherever they go, whether it's on web, on mobile, and now on Alexa. By doing that, what we want to do is to remove friction and barriers to your goal, which is to receive donation. And as we do this, we're then able to sort of build a better future by pursuing the cause that our mutual customers care about. So with that, Alex, why don't you share with us a little bit your experience? And
thanks, Patrick. So again, my name is Alex Barbary. I'm the National Director for the American Heart Association, and it's great to be here with you all this afternoon. A couple things about, let's see if I can get this right.
Yeah. All right. You're smarter than I am.
Beginner's luck. So a couple things about the AHA. First of all, it's a 94-year-old organization, and with that comes a lot of benefits. However, like all of us, we all have our challenges and our shortcomings, and part of our shortcoming is, well, when you're 94 years old, it's kind of hard to be hip and cool. And so I see some of the other causes out today, and being some of you say as well, and some of these are so new and vibrant, and boy, it's like, gosh, if we could just have some of that, that hip factor that a lot of you have. We did just change our mission statement, which I think is important to see. And it might surprise some of you because you don't see the word heart or cardiovascular or anything in here. It's to be a relentless force for a world of longer, healthier lives. And so we are an organization that's at the forefront of looking at health. And as you probably have heard, if your heart is healthy, the rest of you will be healthy. And along with that comes, if you can reduce the risk factors for cardiovascular disease and stroke, you're also reducing it for diabetes, cancer, and so on. So we're really looking at how do we address this issue, not just here in the US, but globally as well. Some of our main tenets, you have brand, science, and grassroots. So part of what makes us hip, our secret sauce, is our partnership with Amazon and with AWS. And so we are really looking at how we can improve science and research through technology. It's something that has accelerated our ability to identify the researchers out there, as well as identify the best new technologies that can make an impact for health here in the US and across the world. Transforming communities. This has been something that we have done forever. So if you are ever grateful to walk into your city and it's a smoke-free city, right? And if you're familiar with that, that's part of the work that the Heart Association has been behind. For those of you who recall years ago, the Trans Fat Initiative, recall when trans fat was something that you had to fight through at every restaurant and almost every item on the shelf, the Heart Association was part of that as well. But we're looking at this differently now to see how do we look at social determinants of health, right? And so it's one thing if you're not going to care if you have low blood pressure if you don't have clean water to drink, right? Or if you don't know when your next meal is coming from. So part of what we're doing now is looking at how do we transform communities so that they're healthier for all of us and looking at the well-being for everybody. System of care is a big part of what we're all about as well. How do we look at the incidence of stroke? How do we improve? It's all about timing, right? So if you have a stroke, we need to get you from the time of the incident to the hospital for treatment as fast as possible. Whatever we can do to minimize that time from the incident to treatment is going to have a huge impact in whether you live and your quality of life afterwards. And then, of course, empowering consumer health and well-being. And this really leads to a lot of the work that we're doing with Amazon and with Pay. So why should we care about cardiovascular disease? And so this gets into it a little bit from a global standpoint. Every 2 seconds, someone in the world dies from a heart attack. So boom, boom. Every 2 seconds, somebody dies. So 17.5 million deaths per year occur as a result of cardiovascular disease around the world. Right, and so this is a surprise to a lot of people because we normally think in this country that cancer is such a big killer, and we also have that tendency to think, well, if you have heart disease, it's because you don't take good care of yourself. And one of the things we're trying to do is to change that. I was a short story. I was with a buddy of mine. I play golf like once every 3 years, and I happened to be with a buddy of mine 3 weeks ago down in Dallas. And it was his birthday, and a few of us were playing golf. And at about the second hole, he tees off. He's a really good golfer, and he says, "Guys, I'm not feeling too good. Maybe something I ate or didn't sleep right last night. I just don't feel too good." I didn't think much of it, right? We get to the third hole, and he tees off, and he said, "I feel like I'm about to collapse." He said, "I feel like I just need to lay down." I said, "Johnny, you're going to lay down right here in the middle of the third hole? This is not good." All of a sudden I realized, okay, he's having a heart attack. So right there, my best friend, 43 years old, having a heart attack in the middle of the third green on the public course in Plano, Texas. And so, I've been with the Heart Association for 12 years. I'm trained in CPR. I'm at my kids' school 3 or 4 times a year training those kids and teachers how to do CPR. And yet I was still freaked out and panicked as to what to do. Right, so part of what we're trying to do here is transform those communities, and part of what the technology that we can access with Amazon is to assist with that, and I'll get to that in a second. There's also, by the way, he's fine now. Sorry, I should probably finish that. Thank God thank God for him that he didn't have to rely on me for more than about 90 seconds because there was a hospital literally down the street from them. So. But the economic toll, as he's experiencing, because he's now, takes several weeks to recover, and the depression and so forth, it's a really big deal. And so we see the economic toll from heart disease is big as well, and it's close to $1 trillion a year in the economic impact, which is obviously significant. So when we look at why AHA and Amazon, why are some of the factors that we're combining together? And you see here you've got the e-commerce leader, customer obsessed, experiencing global scale and rollout. These are all things that are not in our wheelhouse. They're not our part of what we do on a regular basis. And so in order for us to get where we need to go, Amazon is the best partner for us. But what we do have going for us, the most recognized, respected health brand in heart health, leading authority in science. So we really do have the best-in-class science. We have more Nobel Prize winners than anybody out there, which is great. We've funded more research than anyone outside of the U.S. government in heart and stroke health since our inception 94 years ago. Millions of dedicated volunteers and donors around the country as well, an extensive network of partners, which really helps. So we look at 2 of the things that we started off with strongest with our partnership with Amazon was Amazon Pay and Amazon Smile. And one of the aspects that we were most surprised about, you see this next slide, is our role with, or our benefit within Amazon Smile. So first year we started Amazon Smile, and by the way, how many of y'all involved with Amazon Smile? Great, okay, good. And I'm curious, I would love to talk and hear questions of success stories and what y'all are doing. If you've seen significant growth like this, or what's been your experience. But when we started off, we thought, okay, this is nice, $9,000, that's great. We don't have to do a whole lot for it. This is great. We started to, year 2, started to promote it to our constituents, started to get the word out. We saw a nice bump, a nice doubling. But we were not expecting close to $100,000 this past fiscal year. So a huge benefit for us. And this helps also tell the story internally and externally as to why we need to look at some of these new technologies and new ways of doing things is by the slide right here. Now, when we look at why for us strategically Amazon for both Alexa and Pay, right? So for us, it's not just another tactic. That's a good fundraising tactic. For us, it allows the ability to access content, to get content out there to the constituents we need to, and it allows us to as Patrick was saying, to have that trusted partner to help to make sure that that donation goes through, so we're not part of the 82% abandonment rate, which we live and breathe every day before Amazon. So with Alexa, connecting with new audiences, as I mentioned, being a 94-year-old organization, it can be really hard to skew younger, right? It can be really hard to get to that coveted millennial audience. Amazon helps us break through that and gives us that automatic presence and that automatic credibility with the audience. New technology enabling new channels for fundraising. So, as Patrick mentioned, technology for us has not been great for fundraising, right? Sure, we have our events, our walks, and so forth, where you can go and raise money on, but it can be rather cumbersome, okay, and it can be rather complicated. I'm a Heart Walk captain for back at my office, and it's believe me, I'd much rather buy something off of Amazon than use our own company's Heart Walk technology. It's no offense to the technology, it's just hard to do. So it gives us a new way to raise money. We're not having to rely on someone going to our website, getting out their credit card, filling everything in. There's also the trust factor, right? So part of being around for 94 years is the trust that we have within the community, within our audiences. Partnering with Amazon is that same trust factor. They have very same trust that we do. So people have all the confidence in the world to make that donation using Amazon Pay. Let's see. What else did we not capture? Yeah, no, of course, no need to remember passwords. As you're probably familiar with this, the #1 request for customers on our donation page, whether it's HeartWalk or just the overall AHA website, is password forgetting. So it's a big deal for us as well. Some of the ways that we have partnered with Amazon, there's really a few of them here. You see, we have our Institute for Precision Cardiovascular Medicine. I heard someone mention precision cardiovascular medicine earlier. This is the idea basically that instead of just looking at your blood pressure and your diet and your exercise, it's a much deeper dive into your cells and your body in terms of how do we treat you more precisely. And so that's the first thing that we did with Amazon was through AWS with our Institute for Precision Cardiovascular Medicine to build the precision medicine platform. And this is really one of a kind. It's one of the first. It was the first from a nonprofit to have a source for researchers to put data into the precision medicine platform that can then be used for hospitals and governments and researchers and scientists to go and use, park their data, do their own research, which is a really big deal for the American Heart Association to be able to be at the forefront to do our own research using our data as well as others' data. Okay. Then we talked a little bit about Alexa as well. So the benefit that we saw with not just with raising the money through Amazon Pay, we also have on Alexa right now. It's a skill. It's a CPR skill. So we were, I believe, one of the very first to have our own CPR skill on there. So to my story, when I was sitting there with in the middle of the third hole with my friend and trying to make sure I remember all the steps. You have to keep in mind that 350,000 people a year die in the United States because of sudden cardiac arrest. And if you're in the hospital and that happens, you're in much better shape. If you're out of the hospital, unfortunately, there's an 11% survival rate. 11% survival rate, which is dreadful. Most of those cases happen inside the home. So you see, for us, Amazon Pay and Alexa, they're not just good tactics for us to raise money, they're part of our life-saving mission. Right? So through this skill, we are able to have people, to Patrick's point, use voice, using the intelligence to help them walk through exactly what they should be doing to save that person's life. Right? It reminds them to call 911. It reminds them of all the steps. So it's the skill, the content overlaid with the ability to make the donation that makes it much more robust for us than just a tactic to raise money and a tactic to get out there. Right? So to Patrick's point as well, if you're at home and you're thinking, gosh, my wife, my spouse, my parent, they're having an incident, to go to your computer and Google something, signs of a heart attack, what do I do? Or even get your smartphone out, that's not very likely to happen, or it's going to be cumbersome, or you're going to lose all that time versus just blurting out, Alexa, I'm having a heart attack. Alexa, my spouse is having a heart attack. What do I do? And Alexa walks you through it. Okay. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Matter
The
of fact, I know
future
that's
is
it.
bright.
The future is bright.
And without wanting to be disrespectful for your friend, I think we need to install Alexa on golf carts, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll be happy to take any questions that you might have on either for Alex or for I. Don't be shy. We don't bite.
Are you able to give us a ballpark range and the number of donations you've gotten through Alexa?
That is a good question. And okay, since launch in April, we've had I think 34,000 dialogues. It's the number I have in my mind because in Alexa, that is the primary metric that we focus on, which is a measure of how people are engaging. So 34,000 dialogues in the last 4 months or so. When we launched, we had 48 participating nonprofit organizations. We are currently at 94, if my memory serves me right. And part of what we've done actually is sort of templatize this. So literally, there's no integration required. Almost the hardest thing to do is to correctly account for all the ways in which people can invoke your name.
Yeah.
Right. So I had St. Jude's on the video. Right. The official name is St. Jude's Hospital for Children's. Well, most people will not say, Alexa, I would like to make a donation to St. Jude's Hospital for Children. There'll be some form of condensed way of saying this. That was part of some of the technology we had to develop in order to really remove the friction. But as a nonprofit, we've made it very, very simple and straightforward to essentially onboard, go through the normal regulatory part, but really take the technology out of the question. And then really what the future is kind of hold in this is we do have to educate consumers. We do have to let them know they can do this, and so through all of the other touch points that you have with your customers, with your donors, you can sort of point out, and did you know that? And gradually that creates awareness and engagement.
Yeah, and for us, we're now using it across all of our platforms. So not only can you say, Alexa, I want to make a donation to the Heart Association, when you go to the website, you have pay there, so if you want to make a donation there. If you're involved with one of our events, let's say the Heart Walk, or one of our Go Red for Women events, whatever, it'll be there. Amazon Pay will be there for all of them. So it's really across every single platform we have for fundraising.
I was going to ask if you have any tip over.
Here we go.
Yeah.
The bright light.
I was gonna ask if you had any tips for how you've been sort of seeding out the to donate through Alexa. If you had any sort of concrete examples at the Heart Association in particular of how you may be trying to promote it.
Yeah. So there there are so many opportunities we have to promote it. We're taking this in baby steps. The first phase is just telling our current customers. Right, so in an organization as big as we are, let me take a step back. We're trying to make sure that all of our staff and volunteers know that, right? And so starting off with them, and then from our own customers. And part of the way we're doing that is just like I mentioned, through all of those events. A lot of our donors come to us through some sort of event, whether that's an actual event or an end-of-the-year event, or unfortunately a cardiovascular or stroke event. So it's meeting them at every single touch point. What we will be doing down the road is a much more proactive, strategic promotional campaign to really get the word out. And so, honestly, we're not there yet. But we will be. So
one possible suggestion, kind of going back to history rhyming. So today's people spend more time on a mobile screen than they do on a web screen. And it's actually been the case for a while. It's more than 50%. Yet it is only this year, at least for Amazon, that purchases on mobile and tablets have overcome via PCs. 10 years after the launch of smartphone. What we do know is that from the first day of smartphones to this sort of typical crossover, what we had is a lot of people would explore something on mobile and then finish it on the web. And there's no reason why that will be different when you add another way to interact with Alexa. And so I think the great opportunity here is not just to, okay, how do I create a donation capability or checkout or whatever, but how do I create kind of these ever ongoing opportunities to connect with the donors in different ways, and then on their own terms, make it easy for them to move to the donation stage.
Yeah. Another way that we're doing it too is looking at additional content that makes sense. So I mentioned the CPR skill. We have launching the next few weeks a first aid skill. So everything from I'm bleeding, how do I stop the bleeding, to my child drank poison. So that's down the road. Another one down the pipeline would be around healthy living. So the first search that we get, biggest search we get to our website is warning signs of a heart attack. The second are healthy recipes, and so we obviously see a lot of connection with the healthy living. How do I cook healthier? How do I buy healthier for my family? We also see patience as a big avenue for this as well. Imagine if we can use Alexa to help. If you have a parent or grandparent who has compliance issues taking the medicine, right? Imagine if Alexa can be there to say, hey, did you take your blood pressure medicine today? Hey, did you go for a walk today? So all of those we see as promotional touch points for the donation pieces. So,
Thank you.
Your growth on Smile was amazing. What did you attribute last year's increase?
It was that phase one of just getting out to our internal stakeholders, so staff and volunteers, and then just a very basic social media, just our existing social media channels that we have. Really, that was it. I mean, that's a lot of work to do that, of course, but it is sort of there's a very organically growing. We would love to be able to put the resources behind a much more proactive campaign, but for now, that's the best that we can do. So.
Hi. So for Amazon Pay and for Alexa-enabled devices, we're talking about single gifts, recurring donations, and also tribute donations on the roadmap.
Tribute?
Donations in honor or memory of someone.
Good.
And then collecting that additional data in order to send an
Okay. Well, my very naive question on tribute shows that we have an opportunity to add something to the roadmap. With
on our roadmap.
With regards to recurring, so the Amazon Pay is capable of doing recurring transactions. We have not surfaced that into Alexa donation yet. It's definitely something that we're certainly very aware of as important, because then you can sort of create an ongoing portfolio of active donor. But with regards to pay, we have the ability to do recurring with a constant amount, recurring with a variable amount, simplifying even through when you're doing a recurring, you're effectively the customer, the donor is pre-authorizing certain transaction. But what that does is it further reduces the number of click on the ensuing transaction. You can sort of boil it down to essentially one click, and every click counts, right?
Right. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Hi. So I'm curious how you're using Alexa with the skills that you're adding. How are you tying that back to your brand? So for the scenario where you said, how do I do CPR, or I'm having a heart attack, to Alexa, how are you letting people know that that's tied to the American Heart Association?
It's a great question. So I would say we look at that in two different ways. One, as a public health organization, we want the information out there. as I mentioned, if this is happening in the home and your chance of survival are 11%, we don't care if you think it's, to be honest with you, the AHA, the Red Cross, whoever that helps you get the information, we just want you to have it. So that's the first way we look at it. The other way we look at it is, right now, you have to use the words American Heart Association, to Patrick's point, kind of like with the St. Jude example, in that skill in order to activate it. We would like to look at down the road ways of tying it into the back end. So just like you saw in the video, but you have to do it tastefully, of course. So, hey, would you like to learn more about the Heart Association? Would you like to make a donation? Would you like to hear the recipe of the day? That type of thing. So for us, we want it to be more on the back end than we do necessarily on the front end.
Yeah, one of the things that is emerging that we developed on the Alexa platform over the last 12 months is sort of insert anticipation. So if when you talk to Alexa, you specifically name a service provider, somebody who provides content, it's obviously connects to it directly. When you don't, we now start to infer and bring the most likely up. You sort of think a little bit of it as a parallel to search, but it's a little more subtle because what we really have to understand is intent, because with search you can have screens, with voice, it's only one. But this is actually really helping to connect people to an intent of what they really want to do. Because indeed, if somebody in your household is having a heart attack, you may go, Alexa, my friend is having a heart attack, what do I do? And it's not going to be a very necessarily a cogent sentence. We have to understand it and then to route it. The technologies to do that, to understand intent and to disambiguate and then serve the content, that is emerging very rapidly. Today we can do far more than we could do a year ago. A year ago you had to invoke a skill. And a year from now we'll start to see even more intelligence and kind of this interaction to make it natural. Our intent long term is the way we think of Alexa is not as an interface. The way we think as Alexa is an assistant. And with that definitely has to come first, understanding of language, not of voice. And then second, understanding of intent. And then third, serving of the intent with ever more sophisticated approaches.
Yeah. And we see that too with a lot of our older population bases, right, where they're going to be more reluctant to use, a PC or even a smartphone, but their ease of use of an Echo or a Dot is very simple because it's a conversation. So for us, that's a great way to get access to that patient population that there were some big barriers there as well before. So
we do have routinely customer examples that come back to us with either an emergency situation. A fairly common case is an older person has some form of event and calls for help through Alexa, whether it's communication or whatever. That's one. We also have a lot of people with disability who have commented on the fact that by virtue of the fact that they can talk to effectively, computer in the cloud, it's completely transformed a lot of their lives because they can access services they couldn't access before. Whether it is, people that have mobility impairment or for instance, or who are deaf and so on. There's an entire space here of providing access to populations that may not have had that type of access before.
Yeah. And also think about it strategically from what you're trying to accomplish with your own organization. So, down the road for us, we would love to be in a position when someone is compiling their grocery list on Amazon to maybe suggest some more fruits and vegetables or some healthier options out there. And we have to be careful because we get pushback from the nanny state. I get that, but that's for us. That's an important conversation to have because those decisions are made right there in the home, obviously. So.
Yeah, I can hear my kids programming Alexa. When Dad puts certain aspects things on the list, go
Yeah. Well, and my kids were the one driving up the fart skill, so no question. No question.
I think we have time for one last question. And if none, but if any comes later on, I encourage you to stop by the Amazon Pay booth, and we'll be happy to answer any question you might have. And Alex, thank you very much.
Thank you. And you're buying the first round for everybody, is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Totally.
Let's go.